Hey guys, it's Jackie from Jackie's Last Out Book Haul, and I thought I would do a book tag. And by the way, I apologize because I have a cold, so I'm coming down with a cold, so I might sound a little more nasally than usual. But I will do my best like I did in the last video I just filmed. I will post the original creator of this tag in the Dropbox when I'm done filming. Like I said, this is the book recommendations tag, and there's only 4 questions, so hopefully I will get this done really quickly. So the first question is, recommend the best book that you read last month. Okay, maybe that's not the best. Okay. I was gonna say a different one, but you know what, it wouldn't be fair because according to how I rate my books now, it's not the best one. So let me go get the best. Sorry, I'm so unprepared at the moment. Let me see if I can grab it. Thankfully, I got it back. I didn't think I would. Okay, so the best book I read this month is historical fiction, so it will probably only be best to you if you're a fan of historical fiction, and maybe even then it wouldn't be the best, but for me it was the best one that I read last month, February, and that is The Trainer's Wife by Alison Pataki. This is about, if you know your American history, then you know, I'm sure you've heard about Benedict Arnold and how he defected and joined the British and betrayed America. He was like a very famous general, and he was actually a good general at first. But then he meets Peggy Shippen, and the two of them fall in love and get married. Well, he loves her more than she loves him, I think. And they get married, and she manipulates him because she is a supporter of the British and thinks of us Americans as rebels. And she manipulates him into betraying America because he becomes bitter and angry and feels betrayed by General Washington, which is a whole nother story. But this is about that occurrence, and mostly about Peggy herself and how she was involved in all this, and how she was the one who really orchestrated this whole thing, and which is true, but it is told through the eyes of Clara, Peggy's servant, but that part is not true. She is not an actual historical figure in this story. She's a fictional character, and like all 4 of the servants, not just her, but the other servants of the Shippen family are also fictional characters, but it's told through through Clara's eyes. And I really loved this book. Like I said, it's only if you are a fan of historical fiction and you like American history, of course. And I like it. I definitely like learning more about it this way than sitting in a classroom and hearing a teacher lecture about it. Unless the teacher is really good at making it sound more exciting than it is, which it is exciting. But there's some teachers that just state the facts and their voices are kind of boring sounding, and I imagine I couldn't be a teacher. I would not hold my students' attention if I was a teacher. But anyway, it was beautifully written. I could really picture everything that was going on, and Clara and Peggy are such fascinating characters. I mean, Peggy is a horrible person in her manipulating, Benedict Arnold, and is horrible, but you gotta give her props because she was able to get off scot-free, and she played the innocent victim extremely well, which is disturbing, but also wow, amazing, especially during a time when women were not taken so seriously. She was proven to be someone that you should take seriously and don't want to mess with. And she proved she knew according to the book anyway, she knew a lot about politics and had a good understanding. I think that comes from the fact that she was a party girl of this time period, flirting with all the officers, and so she learned over time what was going on. She understood it. And she was very loyal to the British government and to the King of England, King George, I think it was. And this is just so it was I mean, she's not someone she's someone that just she's kind of impressive that she's able to do it, but at the same time you love to hate her because of how smart she is and how clever she is. And you almost feel bad for Benedict Arnold because in this book he's just a really nice guy and that he loves Peggy very much and will do anything for her. And she totally takes advantage of it. Now, Clara is someone that reminds me a lot of Jane Eyre. She is such a good person, very moral, very loyal. She knows her place, but she has a strong voice. But it's just in the beginning of the story, she admires Peggy and is impressed by her because she's this beautiful lady who knows so much and seems so smart. But then as she gets to know her, and the more she spends time with her and helping her with this plan to betray America, she starts to see, yeah, this bitch is crazy. I shouldn't support her. But she can't, of course. She can't walk away because Peggy could easily blackmail her and give her reason to stay because, I mean, she's just a lowly servant. She won't have much out if she runs away, if she leaves, and she could die. I mean, back then they don't have dentists and, dental floss and all that, and electric toothbrushes and all that kind of stuff. They didn't know any better. They didn't have the tools, and they didn't have the proper hygiene and all that stuff that makes sure that, and they didn't know what foods were bad for you and how to stay healthy. And they had baths and stuff and ways to clean themselves, but and still we have so many modern conveniences now that they didn't have back then. So you would die. I mean, they didn't have the medicines we have today, so you would die you could die at a really young age, like in your 40s. Like you might live to your 40s or 50s at the most. So Clara, she needed this job. So she stayed loyal. But so it's a really great book. I love it, and I definitely recommend it for those who like historical fiction and like American history. But, The Revolutionary War, that's what it's called. So this was the best book to me last month, back in February. Okay, so next question is question number 2. Recommend an old favorite. I have here a modern classic, The Great Gatsby. Now, I know, of course, not everybody loves this book, and they don't like the characters, because the characters, with the exception of Nick, are very selfish and vain people. But I like it. First, I love the 1920s. The Roaring 20s, and all of his books, he was an author from the 20s, so all of his books are set in the 1920s. It's write what you know, and he knows his time period, so, he writes about the 20s. And it's a short book, it's not that long, it won't take you that long, and the chapters are really short. They don't take that, it doesn't take that long to read. And it's nice to be able to read it when I'm not studying it, because the first time I read this was in high school, and I just fell in love with the book. I was probably one of the few people who loved it. And so I decided to read it again one day, and I think I read it back in 2016 for the first time. I mean, not the first time, the second time. I think either 2016 or 2017. I can't remember. But it's such a great story. It's about Nick Carraway, this guy who, he's, staying in a beach town or a lake town in upstate New York. And he meets this mysterious man, Gatsby, who throws these amazing parties that everybody knows about. Everybody would love to get invited. And for some reason, Nick, he's just an average guy, he wants to be a writer. gets invited to Gatsby's party. He meets Gatsby, and immediately they become friends. And Gatsby's this charming, suave guy who likes Nick very much. And then and he helps Nick with his job and stuff. And Gatsby eventually admits that actually he's an ulterior motive, that he knows Nick is cousins with an old girlfriend of his, Daisy, and they are next door to each other. So he wants Nick to get Daisy to come secretly meet him, because he wants to reignite the flame and restart their old relationship. Because unfortunately, Daisy broke it off, and because, he was not as financially secure. Unfortunately, though, Daisy is married to a rich guy. So it's very complicated, a very complicated situation. And, Daisy can't bring herself to divorce her husband, who actually happens to be cheating on her. Her husband is cheating on her with another woman from a poorer part of town, which is really messed up. I mean, he's cheating on her, and then, and then she ends up cheating on him with Gatsby, where she starts reigniting the old flame and stuff. Of course, I don't think they ever really got to the point where she actually physically cheated on her husband, but still, it's so ironic that he's cheating on her first, and then she cheats on him, not knowing that he's already cheating on her. I mean, the only one that knows is Nick, and it's like a struggle, which maybe you should have told somebody, but then it all comes to fruition. But then everything comes out in the open and falls apart. Anyway, this is such a great book. I love the writing style. I love the 20s. It's a very fast-paced book. It has the rhythm of the Roaring 20s in the writing style. And it's such a fun book. I mean, I know it's depressing because it ends very tragically, and the characters are very selfish and vain, like I said, but it's an interesting look at those kind of people. It's like a commentary on society back then and on the rich. So I liked it. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's one of my favorites. Okay, so question number 3: recommend a nonfiction read. Okay, so I don't read a lot of nonfiction, and the two that I read years ago, I don't remember if I love them or not, so I couldn't really talk about them. But the one I read last year was Brain on Fire. One of the ones I last year was Brain on Fire. Oh, well, I guess I could have done the Freaks and Geeks and Asperger's Syndrome, but even then, I don't think that was the best book ever. I think Brain on Fire was so much better than that one. But to be fair, that one was written by a 13-year-old boy. But Brain on Fire was written by a grown woman. But the way Brain on Fire is basically about this woman, Susanna Callahan. I don't know how to say her last name. But, I mean, a lot of booktubers that I've read that talk about this book pronounce it not in the way that I thought it was pronounced originally. So I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but it's her memoir on how she went all of a sudden, she had a great job and everything, she was content with her life, but then all of a sudden she kind of loses it and goes crazy, and starts experiencing things like seizures and blackouts and all that stuff, and somehow she wakes up in the hospital not realizing why she's there, not remembering, and you find out that she has this, I don't remember what it was exactly, but something was wrong in her brain that made her go a little crazy. And it's her memoir about her life, and I mean not her life, but that period in her life and what she experienced and stuff through the eyes of doctors and her friends and family, and because of course she didn't remember exactly what happened. She it was like she essentially blacked out. She zoned out. She went and hid in the back of her subconscious. And it's just the way, at first, I was a little nervous about it because it's nonfiction. And when I think nonfiction, I think of a textbook. But this one was written very well. It was written like a narrative. It was like a fiction novel. So it was easy to get into and easy to follow. It wasn't too, there was a lot of references and a lot of discussion of medical things, medical terms that you might not, unless you are in medicine and you're like a biologist and in that science type field, you might not understand them. But I was able to get through them really quickly. Which, I mean, but that's the only downside, is that there was a lot of technical terms and explanations of things that you might not necessarily understand. But the chapters are really short. It's not that long. Like I said, it's written like a narrative. It's just such a fascinating story. And it's kind of sad, actually, seeing this woman slowly lose herself, even though it's temporary. And it does only last a month. I mean, the book is called Brain on Fire, My Month of Madness. So it was only a month when she was like that. But it's a beautiful story, and, well, I do remember another nonfiction I could have said, the Paris Letters, but even then, that wasn't, I still prefer Brain on Fire. So anyway, I'm going to shut up about that and stop thinking about other things I could have talked about. But yeah, I definitely recommend it, and it's like I said, there's some sciencey medical jargon that's hard to, follow and get into. It might drag out the story a bit. But it's, like I said, the chapters are really short, and I think it's worth the read. I mean, if you're just not into that stuff, that's another story. If you're not into reading about people going through that kind of stuff, then that's fine. Then I don't recommend it. But if you are, then I would check it out. Okay, the last one is recommend a book that helps people escape, and I'm going to say it. The obvious answer, the one that everybody would probably say. Well, maybe not everybody, but like a lot of American people would say, a lot of British people might say, and that is Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling. Yes, it's inevitable. I mean, this is the ultimate escape, next to, like, Lord of the Rings. But I can't really say Lord of the Rings because I've only read The Hobbit. I've seen the movies, but I've only read The Hobbit, so I can't fairly say that book. And I would say a Sarah J. Maas book, but I'm constantly bringing up Sarah J. Maas, and I didn't want to do that. Although, a lot of people constantly bring up Harry Potter, but I haven't brought up Harry Potter in a while. So I'm going to say Harry Potter. Harry Potter is just such an adventure. Now, it is YA, middle grade level. Like, the first 3 books are kind of towards middle grade, but you grow with our protagonist, Harry, who is this orphan kid whose parents got killed by an evil wizard. He lives with his muggle aunt and uncle, and that means non-magic folk, as Hagrid says it. And he discovers that he is a wizard by Hagrid the half-giant. And there's a wizarding school called Hogwarts, so, he learns about magic, he goes to school, and he goes through the typical things that, you go through in these kind of stories where he makes friends, he experiences bullies, he goes to school and has lessons, he experiences not just bullies out of his peers, but there's one teacher who really hates him for some reason, although as the series progresses, you find out why that particular teacher hates him. But of course, you can't have fantasy without characters having to fight for their life and some evil monster. And somehow, the evil sorcerer and wizard that killed his parents and tried to kill him with the killing curse, the killing curse, he's the only one who ever survived the killing curse. And so that's part of why he's so famous. Because this kid is very famous in the wizarding world. And, that's the whole point of if you look at the cover, there's like a scar on the kid's forehead. It's hard to tell, but it's shaped like a lightning bolt. It's a very, if you read it's very significant to the storyline if you haven't read the books. It's very symbolic. And Harry, and he, of course, this evil wizard finds a way to come back throughout the series, except for book 3. He doesn't encounter the wizard in book 3. But the rest of the series, he has to constantly battle this wizard and survive him and stuff. And he becomes caught in the middle of this war, and he becomes like a representative of this war and the people's savior, the Wizarding World's savior from this evil sorcerer, this evil wizard. So this is just, first of all, J.K. Rowling creates this amazing world. I mean, it's not perfect. There are flaws in the story, but it's just, there's so much. She creates a government. She creates history. Now there's a Harry Potter website and there's even an American school. Although people kind of have problems with the American school because they say that J.K. Rowling took a lot of Native American references when they bring up the American school that she established in this world, but it was very disrespectful to Native American culture or something like that. It's something like that. But other than that J.K. Rowling is not great, and some of the stuff she adds to this universe now that she's done with the main series is just not that good. But despite that, this still is one of my all-time favorite books. And like I said, she creates government, she creates this whole history, and just it's hard to sum it up, and why it's an escapist book. But I mean, obviously, the fact that it's fantasy makes it escapist enough as it is. Sorry, guys. But it's so amazing, and if you have been living under a rock and have not discovered Harry Potter, then you should check it out. I mean, I know that it's young adult and everything. Sometimes there's common misconceptions about young adult books and how you think I feel like sometimes people don't take young adult seriously because it's about teenagers, so who cares? But it's so much more than that, and it is a lot more deep. A lot of these young adult books, especially like in the fantasy department, are a lot more deeper than people realize. And I think some of those people who are critical of YA should read YA, really think about it and see that there is a lot of depth. And this is definitely one of those stories. I mean, it deals with friendship and love and the importance of it, and good versus evil, and it explores the themes of prejudice and racism in a fantastical way, but still, it does explore it, and but anyway, this is about why this is an escapist book. It's escapist because the obvious is it's fantasy, but it's also, I mean, you really get lost in the wizarding world. It's such a beautiful story, and another one I would recommend. So that is the book recommendations tag. And like I said, I will post the link to the original. God damn it! I will post the link to the original creator of the tag when I'm done. And I will talk to you guys later. I hope you liked this tag, and if you did, please consider yourself tagged. And if you just liked the video but you don't want to do the tag, then just give it a thumbs up and click subscribe if you haven't already. Alright, thank you. Bye.